For the first time, a WWE on-air personality has acknowledged the existence of the White Rabbit. We're going to be talking about that. Plus, a White Rabbit rumor has now been debunked. We'll speak on that too. Goldberg has provided a major update on his WWE contract status. We're going to talk about Candice LaRae and the extent that WWE went to ensure that her return this past week on Raw was kept as a surprise. Plus, we have the ratings for this week's episode of NXT. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of WWE. So let's start off talking about everyone's favorite topic at the moment. That, of course, is the White Rabbit. And a bit of history, a bit of an interesting development when it comes to the White Rabbit and the teasers, the cryptic videos, this, that, and the other. Because for the first time, WWE's on-air personalities have finally acknowledged the existence of the White Rabbit mystery. Now, of course, all of this White Rabbit cryptic stuff has been happening largely off WWE television. The music, White Rabbit by Jefferson Airplane, has been playing during commercial breaks of Monday Night Raw and Friday Night SmackDown. During breaks between actions at WWE live events, we've seen QR codes appear during Raw, during SmackDown. The talent has ignored it. The commentary team hasn't acknowledged it. Social media is buzzing about it, but WWE is clearly being directed not to talk about it. However, that changed yesterday on The Bump, and for the first time on a WWE program, the White Rabbit was discussed, and it must be stated as well, WWE's social media accounts finally acknowledged what is going on when it comes to the White Rabbit. Now, as I mentioned, over the past few weeks, WWE fans and myself, people like myself, channels like myself, have been trying to unravel a mystery during its live events and during episodes of Monday Night Raw and Friday Night SmackDown. Of course, it started with Red Lights and Jefferson Airplane's White Rabbit playing in arenas during commercial breaks. More recently, QR codes have led to online riddles and mini games. After figuring out who killed the world, you did last week, and more and more clues keep pouring out about the aforementioned White Rabbit. However, despite all of these clues and all of this speculation, nobody on WWE television has made any sort of statement regarding the White Rabbit mystery. That is, of course, until now. On this week's episode of WWE's The Bump, Matt Camp finally became the first person within WWE to talk about the mystery playing out on WWE programming. This is what he said, quote, "Let me address not the elephant in the room, but the rabbit in the arenas, or wherever it may be," said Camp. Camp summarized the White Rabbit clues before the most recent clue from this week's edition of Monday Night Raw was replayed on The Bump. Now, Camp's co-host Kayla Braxton also gave her take on it. Braxton, of course, is an on-air personality for Friday Night SmackDown, and when asked if she knew what was going on, she said, quote, "I don't want to know what's going on," Braxton said. "I love things like this because I feel like a fan. I'm going to be just as surprised and excited as people watching at home." While it's still very unclear to anybody who's actually behind the White Rabbit, the most popular theory and prevailing theory at the moment across the internet and across, I would say, the dirt sheets as well, is that this is all pointing to a return of Bray Wyatt to WWE. Now, as I always stress here on the channel when we're talking about the White Rabbit, easy for me to say, is that the major hitters, the major players in the world of pro wrestling news, that being your Dave Meltzers, your Sean Ross Sapps, Brian Alvarez, Mike Johnson, Andrew Zarian, etc., they're all kind of saying the same thing when it comes to the White Rabbit is, I've asked, or we've asked, nobody knows. And the people that do know are keeping this one a big secret. They're keeping it close to the vest. Even people that are involved in putting these things together don't know who it's for. That's the key thing here, is that people that are bringing props to WWE television, people that are playing the song Jefferson Airplane's White Rabbit, people that are doing the lighting are just told, play this song, or put the red light on, or put this together. Nobody knows actually the identity behind it. That's being kept very close to the vest. And I suppose it could be considered a bit of a major thing that it was finally acknowledged, but it's The Bump. It's not Monday Night Raw. It's not Friday Night SmackDown. It's not complete, canon, if you will. It's not proper WWE television. That's kind of what The Bump is. If you've ever watched The Bump, It's their sort of social media, internet, YouTube show whereby they sort of weave in and out of storyline and sort of just talking about the show. So if anything, they could just so easily go through the show and not talk about it, but at the same time, their show is kind of from a fan perspective, even though they're not fans, they're WWE presenters. But my point being is that that's kind of what they do on that show, is talk about what's happening and talk about what's happening on social media as well. So I'm not shocked that they talked about it. I was a little bit surprised that the WWE Twitter account actually posted it. I thought that they might leave that because they've been hiding from it, but it must be said, other WWE affiliated accounts, not the main WWE Twitter account, but say the WWE BT Sport account or BT Sport on WWE, whatever you want to call it, or the WWE Fox account, they've all acknowledged the White Rabbit, like acknowledging Roman Reigns, but they've said that it's a thing. They're not ignoring it. So I guess the bump is the latest thing. And again, it's not canon. It's not WWE TV. It's not Raw. It's not SmackDown. Yes, it's a WWE produced show, but it's not in terms of being in storyline. However, it must be said at times the bump can be used for storyline purposes. We've seen major matches be announced on the bump. We've seen major returns be announced on the bump as well. So it's not to say that they can't weave in and out of storyline on that show. They've done it before, but I don't think this is any big revelatory situation. Would I have preferred them not to acknowledge it at all until we find out who it is? Yeah, I'd have preferred that. I'd have preferred it to be this unspoken, nobody talks about it kind of situation. And then once Jefferson Airplane's White Rabbit plays on television for the first time, and out comes The Fiend, or out comes Bray Wyatt, or out comes whoever it may be, it would be a thing which everyone knew what was going on, but they're not talking about it. Because that makes it even more sort of cryptic and scary of nobody talk about it. Nobody mention it. Nobody acknowledge it whatsoever. That to me is fun. But I guess that's today's age of social media and what have you. Now, we did do a story the other day. We spoke about this leak that was on Reddit regarding a White Rabbit possible mini game or clue or whatever it may be. Now, the mystery of who the White Rabbit continues to grow. Fans are now looking into places that provide more evidence on who the identity of said individual is, including a particular video that evidently has nothing to do with the situation. Now, as I mentioned, we kind of covered this on the channel when it came out previously. Over the past few days, a tic-tac-toe game that is White Rabbit themed has gone viral on Reddit. And as I mentioned, we actually covered this as a possible leak of a video or a clue, with some believing the game is connected to WWE's viral marketing storyline. But it would appear that is not the case. Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select is reporting that the game and WWE's White Rabbit have nothing to do with each other and are, as such, not connected. Regardless, the video's lack of connection will do little to change the fact that Bray Wyatt remains the favourite in the clubhouse to eventually be revealed as the aforementioned White Rabbit. While there has been no report confirming it is indeed Wyatt, or that he is indeed back with WWE or signed a contract with the company, fan speculation has continued to lean towards him, and reportedly many within WWE see him, the former Fiend, as the most likely candidate as well. No real other serious contender has emerged for that role. There have been half-hearted guesses, I suppose, involving the likes of Karrion Kross, because of course he briefly played a character called the White Rabbit in Lucha Underground. There have been speculation it could be Malachi Black, because of course he's been rumored to leave AEW, and in the HTML it featured the lyrics of Black's old theme song, but that speculation ended very quickly when Black took to Instagram soon after to reveal that he had not been released by AEW and would be returning to the promotion sometime later this year. We actually did a video, or I did rather, it dropped yesterday morning, going through some other possible candidates, and I'll be totally honest, a lot of them are reaches, but I would caution everyone to say that in the past, and this is the past, this isn't the current WWE regime, but in the past, when there have been mysteries, when there have been riddles, not Matt Riddle, when there have been actual WWE riddles or cryptic videos or whatever, the clues don't actually provide much of a clue to the identity. They can just make no sense, and WWE just decides to go in a different direction. So just because a lot of the clues don't point to a certain person, it doesn't mean it's not them. However, it must be stressed, that was the old regime. That was the Vince McMahon way of working of, it doesn't matter. What matters is the reveal. Whereas you do feel like with Triple H, what really does matter is things making sense and things being enjoyable and fan reaction and fan response. So I'm still of the mindset that the White Rabbit is indeed the returning Bray Wyatt, but hey, things can still change and maybe more clues will point us in a different direction. We'll have to wait and see. But that is the latest development when it comes to the White Rabbit. Let's talk about Goldberg. Speaking of the bump, Goldberg was on the bump, and Goldberg has had obviously a fantastic career in professional wrestling, an interesting one. He's had two very distinct runs. Of course, he wrestled from 1997 until WrestleMania 20 in 2004. He then returned to pro wrestling at Survivor Series in 2016 and has wrestled as a part-time performer until the present day. Last wrestling at Elimination Chamber earlier this year. At that event, Goldberg attempted to defeat Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship. However, Reigns would walk away with the victory and the title in Saudi Arabia. Now, the WWE Hall of Famer and 5-time world champion Goldberg has given a major update regarding his contract status with WWE and if he is interested in getting revenge on the head of the table. He said, quote, "I don't have any matches left on my contract, but I know one way we could take care of Roman Reigns," Goldberg said, appearing on the bump. "I do need to give him a little receipt for that chokeout in Saudi Arabia, but I think there are a number of superstars capable of dethroning him." Now, Goldberg has wrestled 12 matches since returning in 2016, with 7 of those including him being as a champion or a challenger for the WWE or Universal Championship. Since 2016, Goldberg has won the Universal Championship twice, of course in 2017 where he defeated Kevin Owens at Fastlane, and also in the now infamous Super Showdown in 2020 where he defeated The Fiend for the championship. It was absolute nonsense. So Goldberg is nothing real, huge breaking news here. Doesn't have any matches left on his contract. He's still under contract to WWE. I'm not sure until when. It might be the end of this year. It might be the summer of this year or maybe the spring, but he doesn't have any matches left on it. Now, that's not to say he can't wrestle any more matches. And Goldberg has done quite a few interviews recently because it's 25 years of Goldberg this year. He's done quite a few interviews recently where he said, look, I'm ready to go. I'm waiting for WWE to pick up the phone. As far as Goldberg's concerned, whilst he doesn't have any matches left on his deal, he's expecting WWE to call him and say, hey, here's a match for you. And I suppose as we get closer to November and that Saudi show, Crown Jewel, which Goldberg has competed largely on the majority of the Saudi shows, not all of them, but the majority of them, the expectation, I suppose, is that given the budget of those shows, Goldberg will come back for another big payday. Now, again, that was under the old regime in WWE. Vince McMahon, whenever he felt like he needed a big match, or whenever he felt like he needed star power, that's why Goldberg was involved in all of these title matches. Whenever he felt like a big match needed star power, he picked up the phone and called Goldberg. Now, we don't know if Triple H is going to go down the same route. We know that Triple H and Goldberg actually get on fairly well, which is wild considering back in 2003, 2004, they hated each other. And Goldberg said numerous things, bad things about Triple H during his hiatus from pro wrestling, but we don't know. We don't know what Triple H is going to want to do with Goldberg. My feeling is that Goldberg will not be wrestling at Crown Jewel. He might have wrestled his last match for WWE, frankly, whilst Goldberg says he's going to stay ready. I just think that that's a different mindset. I think Triple H is going to go in a different direction. So whilst Goldberg doesn't have any more matches left in his contract, I don't suspect we're going to see any more Goldberg matches in WWE. Could be massively wrong, so we'll have to wait and see, but I don't think we're going to see any more of Goldberg inside the squared circle. Let's talk about Candice LaRae. Of course, she made her return to WWE this past Monday night on Raw. Fans were delighted to see the return and call-up of former NXT star and the wife of Johnny Gargano, Candice LaRae. The surprise energy continued when LaRae went on to wrestle on the show, defeating Nikki ASH in her first match back. According to Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select, WWE wanted to keep the return under wraps and was successful in doing so, listing Doudrop internally as the opponent for ASH on the show. The shocking return was a surprise to many, with it being her first match since July of 2021, where she and her partner Indy Hartwell lost the NXT Women's Tag Team titles to Zoe Stark and Io Shirai. Now, LaRae reportedly let her WWE contract expire this summer, joining her husband on the outside of WWE as they dealt with the birth of their first child, Quill. The former NXT Women's Tag Team champion was working with the company while pregnant in a non-wrestling role prior to her expiration of her deal. Gargano reacted to his wife's return later on social media, stating that his son wasn't the only person who helped him train for his own WWE comeback, which took place in Canada a few weeks ago. Adding to that reaction was a slew of WWE and AEW talents, including the likes of Tegan Nox, Wendy Chu, Beth Phoenix, Bayley, and Tay Mello, who were pleasantly surprised to see LaRae back in a pro wrestling ring. Next up for LaRae is a match against former NXT talent Dakota Kai, who she'll face next week on Raw after LaRae confronted Damage Control after her debut this week. Of course, great to see Candice LaRae back. Whilst it was a surprise and nobody saw it coming that night, I think people in general saw that she was going to come back eventually. Candice LaRae, after Johnny Gargano returned to WWE, Candice LaRae was not going to show up in AEW. She was not going to show up in Impact Wrestling or anything like that. She was only ever going to come back to WWE. I think maybe the speed in which she came back is quite surprising, but she looks great. I mean, you wouldn't have been able to tell. She, gave birth. When did she give birth? Late last year, I think it was, in December. She looks fantastic. And that Raw Women's Division, I keep mentioning this, that Raw Women's Division is so strong right now. You've got Bianca Belair, Bayley, now Candice LaRae, Becky Lynch, Dakota Kai, Io Sky, Asuka, Alexa Bliss. I could go on. It's so strong. It really is strong. And we don't know what brand Charlotte Flair is going to be on as well. So I think that the Raw Women's Division and the WWE Women's Division in general is just so strong right now. And I think that's a credit to WWE and credit to Triple H. And I'm really excited to see how Candice LaRae is going to fit into things on Raw. Is she going to be involved in this Bayley Damage Control feud with Bianca Belair? Is she going to form a tag team? Is Indy Hartwell going to get called up to the main roster? And then we've got an actual proper female tag team to go after the tag team championships. That to me makes the most sense, I think. So We'll see for that one, but great to, of course, have Candice LaRae back in WWE. Finally, speaking of NXT, we have an update on the NXT ratings for this week's episode on the USA Network. The new era of NXT is off to a bit of a strange start when it comes to the ratings. WrestleNomics shared viewership information for Tuesday night, and the September 27 episode of NXT averaged 660,000 viewers. That's the lowest total viewership for the program since August 9, and down 4% from the previous week. However, the key demographic is actually up. NXT was watched by 209,000 viewers aged 18 to 49, which is up 6% from last week and totaling a 0.16 rating in that 18 to 49 demographic. The episode ranked 14th in the key demographic among cable originals. In broadcast primetime, the show came 28th. Now, a positive takeaway is that viewership is actually up in comparison to last year, be it only slightly. The September 28, 2021 episode had a total viewership of 655,000, a mere 5,000 less than Tuesday. Now, the key demographic was a 0.14 18 to 49 rating, which is actually 12% less than last night's program. So you could argue it's basically flat in terms of viewership year on year, but actually the 18 to 49 is up 12%, which is good, which I'll be happy with, but it's still very low. I mean, that's NXT's biggest struggle, is actually that 18 to 49 demo just isn't there. For whatever reason, those key people, like older people, watch that show. And maybe that makes a little bit more sense, the hardcore wrestling fans. I don't know. NXT is a bit of a viewership anomaly, really. And what can you expect, especially now with the fact that it's widely acknowledged it's not a third brand anymore, it's developmental. You're telling people, tune in to watch developmental. And a lot of people just don't have the time or want or desire to tune in to watch that. So it can be said it's not a real shocking surprise that the numbers are what they are. I thought the episode was decent. I think NXT's in a really weird and interesting time now that they're moving away from NXT 2.0, the Vince McMahon and Bruce Pritchard image for the brand. We're moving back towards not Triple H's old image and vision for the brand, but this sort of hybrid version now of NXT 2.0 with Triple H's old version. We're getting the NXT UK influence of all of those stars coming in and building to NXT Europe as well. So we're in a really strange time for NXT right now, and it is going to be quite interesting, I think, to see where do they go in the future. What is this Triple H image? The Triple H vision, certainly, going forward is NXT is going to conquer the globe. We're going to get NXT Europe, NXT South America, NXT India, NXT Canada, NXT Japan. That image that he had in the past, he's still building towards that. But in the interim, what does that look like? What does the format look like? We've got a new logo, but it still feels quite the same as NXT 2.0. So all of that kind of stuff, I think, is going to be figured out in the next few months. And I don't know how that's going to affect the ratings, to be honest. There's not a huge amount of a draw to watch NXT. I think you have to be a real hardcore fan to want to watch that. It's not like in the past where you got to watch it because there are these indie people you've liked for ages, or people you never thought were going to be in WWE and now in the company. I don't see that. So it's going to be interesting. That's all I can really say about it going forward. But there you go, guys. That's the latest WWE news. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.